All right, so moving on to the free agents. So we are going to go through the biggest winners from a fantasy point of view in the free agency. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Cal. This first guy is obvious, and he's going to be going off draft boards early.
It has to be. It's got to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Am I
Yeah.
right? Like the
Yes.
man, he's the only remaining starter, I think, for that that fourth seed
Yeah.
or fifth seed OKC team. So he's gonna. Is he gonna be the number one option? Like I don't know,
Has
maybe.
to be. Has to be. He has to be the number one option.
It's not gonna be Big Al Horford.
I don't think so. I don't think Al Phillips is going to be at the age that he's at. But yeah, Shai is clearly, in my opinion, the number one beneficiary from this offseason. He's going to be a very popular pick early in drafts. I had him last year. He made a huge jump in his points per game from year 1 to 2. And he was ranked 54th overall in a punt turnover build last year. Averaging 19, 6, and 3 with a steal and nearly a block per game with good shooting percentages, just over a 3-pointer per game. I can easily see those assists doubling this year, getting up to 6 assists, and that scoring to take an even further increase. Even the rebounding could increase because obviously Steven Adams isn't there. They've shipped everyone out. Like there's no one left on this team. So maybe his turnovers increase and maybe his percentages drop a little bit, his field goal percentage, that is. But if you're willing to cop a little bit of a hit there, his counting stats are going to be very nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a bonus to him, he'd be getting you. I mean, he averaged 19 points last season.
Yeah.
So that's going to jump up. His assists should definitely jump up with Chris Paul gone. He's going to run the show a lot more, have the ball in his hands way more often. And his free throw percentage was actually pretty good. I mean, like he shot 5 a game last season. Surely that's going to go up to like 7 a game, maybe 8 a game.
Yeah, you'd think he would get
at 80%.
Yeah, so he'll have a bigger increase in that, which is a good point. That's a big increase to his value. So now, as of recording, Yahoo just changed this on us today. But as of recording, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is ranked 34 on Yahoo. Would you be comfortable drafting him around that point?
It's still pretty high up. I mean, there's a lot of good players under 34. So I can see players taking him at 34.
Yep.
I personally would probably want to get him in the 40s if I could.
Yeah.
I think if he's dropping, because some people will be scared. Some people will think, oh, I don't know, there's some uncertainty. If he drops to the mid 40 range, you just have to pick him up, in my opinion.
Look, I'm perfectly comfortable drafting him at 34. I could even go a bit higher. I'm happy to draft him, between that 25 and 30 range. Like, I think he's going to be an absolute star this season. There's no reason I can't see him averaging 23, 6 and 6 with a steal and a half, bigger free throw percentage, boom. And getting nearly a block from your guard, that's big time as well. So I'm all aboard the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander hype train. I think he's a great player. So he's pretty clear cut. I think he'll be going off early in drafts. One person who may not be clear cut, and some people may have been burnt by it in the past, who I think is another big winner from this free agency, is Gordon Hayward. And it pains me to say this as a Celtics fan, but he is going from a fourth option on the Celtics behind Kemba, Brown, and Tatum to what should be the number one option on a struggling Charlotte team. So he actually did pretty well last year from a fantasy point of view in the regular season. Obviously, he had some injuries in the playoffs and struggled to get healthy and has done for the past 3 years. But from a fantasy point of view, I really like what Gordon Hayward could be doing this season. What do you think?
I think he's definitely going to go up. You look at kind of the first couple months of last season, he put up something like 19, 5 and 5 or something pretty crazy. And then he dropped off a fair bit. And that's still in that kind of number 4 role. So if he can kind of obviously stay healthy is the one main thing for him. And there's a bit of an injury concern for him. But if you can get Gordon Hayward at a pretty reasonable pick, we'll dive into numbers a bit later on. But I still think he's got to have the ball more in his hands. The question mark, I guess, with Charlotte is like they've got essentially kind of 3 point guards, and we know Gordon can run the show a bit too. So on a negative, it's like, I'm not sure how his assists would go with that team, but I still think that his points have got to go up, And he's just an efficient player. Like field goals
Yeah.
good, free throws are good, turnovers are usually pretty reasonable. So he's just like a good, solid all round player that doesn't like hurt any kind of strategy. He fits every build. So.
Yeah. So last year, he averaged 17 and a half, 6.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 threes. Didn't quite get a steal, but 50, like you said, good percentages, 50% from the field, 85 from the line, low turnovers. He was ranked 49th, even in a punt turnover build last year. And on Yahoo currently, he is the 87th ranked player, which just doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know how he's getting worse than last year. I guess there are questions about his health, which is probably the biggest thing. And you do have to take that into consideration. But I don't know. I feel like at 87, that's a steal. Like at that point of the draft, there are injury issues galore. There's risks galore. So I'd be probably comfortable picking him around close to like the 60 mark personally, between that 50 and 60 range. I think that's probably good value because he's got even a chance. He was 49th last year. He's got a chance to be, top 40, pushing close to that 30 rank there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it could be a sign. So what it wouldn't be quite as good as the Utah Gordon Hayward, but that Utah Gordon Hayward, he was kind of like in the 20s kind of range.
Yeah.
So he was really good. And I think you're right. If you can get him around that 60 range, I think you're doing pretty damn well.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see him averaging 20 points, more rebounds, hitting more threes. Potentially his assists, I could see it probably being pretty similar. I mean, depending on how much they go through LaMelo Ball. But yeah, definitely those points, rebounds, and threes will go up, I believe. And maybe the turnovers go up too, but my thoughts on that. All right, I guess the next biggest winner, and he was a big factor in fantasy last year, was Christian Wood. And he's a winner because he gets to keep his starting position being traded to Houston Rockets. And I think this is a perfect fit for him. He was, look, if the season kept going, he would have been on a lot of championship teams last year, people who picked him up before Andre Drummond got traded. And once Andre Drummond did get traded, this guy went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who can hit the three and get a block when he actually had his minutes, and something like that is very valuable on fantasy. So when you get him, you're hoping that he can get if he gets 1.5 on both those ends, that's valuable with the points and rebounds and the field goal included. So and then that being said, his free throws are also pretty reasonable for a big man. He shoots about 75%, so it doesn't really hurt you. And there's that value for the blocks and the threes. So, and I don't know how many other centers that Rockets have in their roster, but he should definitely have a pretty big role.
So he was basically their only center aside from 40-year-old Tyson Chandler, but they did sign, I think it was DeMarcus Cousins as well on that team.
Health concern.
Health concern. So I know we all think Boogie Cousins, multi-time All-Star, but I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. It will be interesting to watch. But I still think Christian Wood's definitely the guy that they want to give more minutes and the guy that they want to be starting. So look, let's just listen to these numbers. When he was a starter, which was only 12 games, so it is a small sample size, but nearly 35 minutes a game, 22 points, 9.5 rebounds, 2 assists, nearly a steal, nearly a block, 1.7 threes, shooting 56 and 74 from the line. So those are some pretty tasty stats. And I believe in that time he was ranked nearly close to the top 30. So someone who's going to be, again, another popular pick, I think. I think he will be going pretty early. Let me just have a quick look at where he's ranked. He's ranked 62.
62, yeah.
Which I think is too low. I would be very comfortable drafting him in that 40 to 50 range personally. I think he, especially if you can have a look in the training camp and he's starting over DeMarcus Cousins, definitely someone who could go a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, and as we touched on the health, it's surely Boogie's going to rest games. I don't know how many games he'll play. So when that happens, I can see, and I guess something else we might have to address is the whole Westbrook and James Harden situation.
Yeah.
All you really need Christian Wood to do is just hit the open three and then pick and roll to the rim, obviously, and get those kind of big dunk plays, which we know James Harden's really good at. He did it with Capella. So that kind of ups Christian Wood's field goal, gives him easy basket, easy points at that kind of rim runner role. So
yeah, both Westbrook and Harden are good at those, drawing the defender to dish it off. Westbrook did it with Steven Adams back at OKC. And even if both of those guys leave, well, that's just more usage, more plays run through Christian Wood. So I think either way, he's going to be in a really good position. All right, let's move on to winner number 4. And I am happy to say this one because it's my boy Marcus Smart. Now, I suppose the Celtics in as a whole, we'll get to another Celtic later, should be a bit of a winner from a statistical point of view because Tatum's obviously left, one of their big 4 that you could say. But I think Marcus Smart's the biggest winner. We saw him move into the starting lineup when Hayward went down in the playoffs, and he thrived in that role. And I think he's going to get much more secondary ball handling opportunities. The season's not even started yet, but we're already getting rumors of Kemba Walker resting and taking some, getting going early on the season, maybe having some minutes restrictions. But I think Marcus Smart's in for a big year this year with Gordon Hayward gone.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, he's gonna have to be in a starting role. Even though I will say he still played about 31 and a half minutes a game last season. But it's more, I guess, the usage as you.
It's the usage, yeah.
So he's always been one of those guys who his kind of effort on the court wasn't always translated to stats. But now that he's shooting a lot of threes, his 3 categories huge, and with those steals as well. I mean, he put up 1.7 steals last season, so he's always very high up in that category. Really useful having, and he can get the odd block here and there. The only thing he does hurt you on is the field goal. He only averaged 37.5 field goal last season.
Yeah, it is his worst category by far, and it's something you do have to take into account. In saying that, though, in a punt turnover build, he was the 62nd ranked player, and Yahoo has him ranked at 94 right now. So again, Yahoo thinking that Marcus Smart's going to get worse than last year with Gordon Hayward. I don't know. Maybe they rate Jeff Teague over Gordon Hayward a bit more. I'm not sure, but I definitely, at 94, that's a slam dunk pick, especially if you're in a punt field goal percentage build. His value goes even higher than that, and he becomes a top 50 kind of player. So someone who I really like to target in those middle rounds if I am punting that category. Anything more to say on Marcus Smart, or are we pretty have to move on?
I'll say for numbers, I feel like I personally would, as you said, the middle rounds, maybe that 7th or 8th round, when you want to get some threes, that's probably his biggest strength. So I'd be getting him around that kind of maybe 60 to 70. If he falls there, I'd be taking him.
I mean, look, threes, assists, steals, low turnovers. For a guard, he's averaging half a block, which is not too bad. I can definitely see the assists and points going up this year. The assist just because he's going to have the ball in his hand more. Gordon Hayward was he was a secondary ball handler for the Celtics, especially sometimes when they rotate those 4 players around. So I think that will go to Marcus Smart a lot more this season. So I think, he's a slam dunk in a punt field goal build. All right, let's go on to the next winner. And this is, again, another player who I think is going to be very hyped this preseason, and that is Michael Porter Jr. Obviously, he played well in the bubble. Well, had a few games of brilliance. Probably feels like it was more than it actually was. But the big thing for him is Jeremy Grant is gone. So opportunity.
Opportunity. That's what it comes down to. And I will say, as a big positive for him, is some negatives you could say was in the playoffs he didn't perform as well as he did in the bubble. But we all know regular season is different to playoffs.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'd be drafting Jimmy Butler as my number 1 pick in the playoffs.
Jeez.
So he's one of those players who I think will translate very well to the regular season. So he's going to have some big upside. He'll hit threes. He'll get a good amount of rebounds. Even though he's defensively not that good on the court, I still think he could get the odd steal because he's so agile and mobile.
He's long,
man.
Yeah,
exactly. So I think his stats will still be there. And surely his minutes will go up now that Grant's gone. So I think it's a match made in heaven. I think he's definitely could be a huge steal if he does kind of go into a starting role and that's maintained. The only downside to him would be if for some reason he would lose the starting role. I don't think that's super likely. It really comes down to his defense, I guess, and how Coach Malone wants to take it. But I think the ceiling for him is very high, and he'd definitely be on my watch list in the middle rounds. Right now, he's 91 as a rank, and I think that's too low for him. I think his ceiling's a lot higher than that. So I'd be looking at the middle, 6, 7, 8 round. If you can get him around that 70 range, 60 range even, I reckon he's worth he's a bit of a, shoot for the stars kind of pick, but I think his upside's there.
Yeah, definitely. I look like he averaged 16 minutes last year. So if he was averaged 32 minutes per game, which is definitely realistic, it's something that I think they should do. You could basically go ahead and just double those stats, and that's like an 18 and 10 kind of player who gets a steal and a block and a couple of threes. That's a really good, solid player. Good percentages, great field goal, great free throws, and low turnovers. So that's the kind of player that fantasy basketball loves, and he would be very well represented in the rankings if he was able to do that. Whether or not he does that, obviously they still have Paul Millsap on the team. Will Barton will be coming back into the mix, so maybe he plays less at the 3, more at the 4. But those two players, I'm not too concerned personally. I think he should get played well over those two. Millsap's obviously older. Will Barton's in and out of the lineup as it is. And I think he's the future of this team as well. So I think it helps the Nuggets to play him as many minutes as they can. I personally would have Marcus Smart ranked over him though. And I know that Yahoo's got him behind him, but I think Marcus Smart he's more of a sure thing than Porter Jr. I think Porter Jr. has a bit more of a downside, a bit more of a risk than someone like Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I'd agree to that. It's he's definitely a safer bet in Marcus Smart. And but I think the ceiling is definitely a lot higher for Michael Porter. And that's, if you do draft, and that's what you're looking at.
I'm going to go through these next 5 real quick. We'll just touch on them real briefly. I'll just give you the 5 and you can let me know your thoughts real briefly. At 6, we have Josh Richardson. We've got Jayson Tatum at number 7, who's going very early in drafts. Al Horford at number 8, going for a bit of a bounce back because he's in OKC. There's literally no one else there. Delon Wright could be a starter in Detroit, and his stats project really well for fantasy when he gets the minutes. And Kobe White, now that Chris Dunn is gone, he looks like he's going to have the keys to the starting point guard role in Chicago. Which of those names stand out to you there, Cal?
I'd say 2, both of which are small forwards. I think Jay Rich, I think he had a down season last season, and that's because he was playing on a team that was a terrible fit in general. So this wasn't offensively, it was a terrible team. So, and now he's being put on, guess what the Mavs were last season? The best offensive team in the league.
100%. Yep.
And he's going to have a pretty reasonable role on that team. So he's got to be a pretty good pick. Like, I think go for him. He gets the steals. He gets the defensive stats. He doesn't harm you in turnovers a whole lot. He gets threes. He defends. He's a good player. And look, he's a good player to having a team just so you can watch the Mavs as well. Like, I love watching Luka. So I think he's a great spot. I'll also mention Jayson Tatum.
My guy.
He's going early in drafts. I can see him being a pretty easy second round pick this season because his points should definitely go up. Building off the playoffs he just played, huge. With Gordon Hayward gone, surely his touches would even that's going to go up. Surely, like he was looking like a dominant player, dominant closer. When it's fourth quarter time in a close games, it's always going to go to him at this point. So he's going to have some good stats in my opinion. So that'd be my top 2 out of the handful you threw at me.
Just on Tatum, he's on Yahoo. He's ranked number 10, so that would make him a first round pick. Do you think that's a bit high?
I think it's a bit high. He's definitely a second rounder for me. Definitely second.
Okay. I don't mind him on the turn there. So if you're in a 10 or 12 team league, just because there are a lot of players there with high risks. So players like LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid. I don't want 2 of those players. So what I would be looking to do on the turn there is get one of those risky kind of players with a higher upside and then maybe pair him with a Tatum who is a bit safer and doesn't really have any holes in his game. He's a pretty complete player. So he would pair with any of those players really nicely, and you can start your fantasy team really strong there. We saw flashes in the playoffs of him bringing up the assists a little bit higher. I think he's going to average close to 25, 26 points a game. And if he can keep doing that on good percentages, his steals are very good. He gets nearly a block a game as a small forward. So I don't mind it. I don't hate it. And as a safer play, I think I can see that happening. I do want to shout out one guy, Kobe White. I think Kobe White's in for a big season. I think we saw a stretch at the end of last year of him starting to heat up and go off, scoring big buckets and actually getting some decent assists. And I think with Chris Dunn gone there, that solidifies that Chicago thinks he's going to be the point guard for their future. So I like Kobe White moving forward. Maybe not the biggest assist point guard, but he's going to score.
He'll get points. He'll get threes. I will say that Chris Dunn, for some reason, was actually the starting small forward for the Bulls.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, they drafted a small forward. I know
Yeah.
it's one of those teams. But look, towards that latter kind of 2 months, he was popping off. He was multiple kind of 30-point games. He'll be a streaky kind of shooter. He could be someone maybe for a punt field goal because I see him throwing up a lot of threes. But I can see his points and threes being pretty beneficial for a team.